Whatever Pomanders you had on the previous floor set, they are fully carrying over to that next floor set. Stone 11 to 20. Now, the 1 to 10 floor set, I was kind of saying, like, okay, yeah, it's a floor guide, but we didn't really talk about much of the floor. We just kind of hit a bunch of buttons and went through. But the reality is, the enemies are not, in my opinion, that worthy to really talk about, because we're kind of executing them the same. Whether they do 1 AoE, whether they do line AoE, circle AoE, point blank AoE, we're kind of just looking at them and then kind of just dealing with them. So that's why it's not too big of a deal to kind of discuss each and every individual one, which we'll do much later into the different floor sets. But here, we'll still talk about more about generalized deep dungeon strategy, how we get through, our method of thinking. That's what you're going to get on this floor set, okay? And like the last floor set, we're going to do the kind of even and odd situation. On the odd floors, we're going to do our big pulls. I'm going to showcase to you Samurai, what they're capable of. We're doing big wall-to-wall pulls, and then we'll chill out on the even floors. We'll do single pulls to kind of show you the difference. And in this case, when it comes to soloing a deep dungeon, one thing to always keep in mind, it's you. It's not your friend, it's not your family, it's not your raid partner. It is you. However you decide to experience this content, that is your call. So if you think those AoE pulls that we'll be doing looks really sick and you want to do it too, by all means, please do what you gotta do. If you're like, oh man, this looks really spicy, I don't know, I'm just gonna stick to single pulls, guess what? You can still win with single pulls, and that's why I want to demonstrate both to you. Now, my method, I've done this for a while. I do like doing the bigger pulls just because I got used to them with practice, but hey, if it's your first time, maybe you're not quite used to it yet, and that's perfectly okay. This is your experience, and what I will tell you, yes, doing bigger pulls does speed up the run, but also on these lower floor sets, you're not really stretched for time that much, especially even with the solo run, right? And maybe from a match party perspective, you might have been also gotten exposed to these big pulls. I think when I went through 1 to 10 on match party, the team was just doing like wall to wall. They're pulling everything and killing everything. Maybe your 11-20 was like a similar experience, but it wasn't just something you can only do in a party. You can totally do it soloing with your regen potions that you'll have. You'll have strength and seals now because we're carrying our Pomanders from the previous set. That's also one other thing that's different about match party. It's that unlike match party, where once you beat a floor set, your Pomanders reset to nothing because you're running with different people. This is just you, and this is your file. So whatever Pomanders you had on the previous floor set, they are fully carrying over to that next floor set. So you're starting off with a good stock. We had a pretty good stock stepping into 11-20. So let's hop on it. 11-20. Floor guide. Samurai melee POV. This is good for melee. Hey, but it might be good for other jobs too. All right. So now the area gets a little bit more corrupted from the light, and that's why it's a little crystally and everything. That's what you're seeing right now, and which is kind of a cool little feature here. Alright, so I'm going to pop that steel, which is actually fantastic as a start, and also just a little bit of a note for Deep Dungeon. Haste to me is a partially common Pomander, so it's not a terrible idea to kind of push it to 2. That's a little bit of a strategy that we like to do in Deep Dungeon. You'll see a lot of people say that. Palms to 2, because it prevents any type of overcapping, which is not a bad thing to kind of get used to. A lot of people doing their first Deep Dungeon will feel like they need to be conservative. Oh, I don't want to run out of Pomander, so I'm going to make sure that they're kept at 3. It's not a terrible thing to start with, but it certainly is my recommendation to start moving into this idea of kind of keeping them at 2, because it definitely makes your Pomander usage a lot more efficient, and not to have like too much overcapping or palms that you no longer have use for, because you just got too many of them, right? So, alright, here's our big pull here. Look, I'm not gonna say I'm a pretty good person at hitting buttons, so if you're like, wow, you could have hit that so much better, yeah, you're right, I could have. But my specialty is the Deep Dungeon, not so much hitting the job, so I always like to say, well, look, I'm not gonna play a job good, and if you think you can play it better, good. I hope that gives you a lot more confidence to do your runs personally, you know? It's like, hey, I can get you through the content with our knowledge, you do the rest. So we're doing that big pull, getting everything out of here. As you can see, fairly comfy with Bloodbath and our potion and everything. Not a big deal here. Always make sure that when you open a silver chest that you're at full HP so it doesn't explode. Got another maze route, which is perfectly fine. Let's go to the next floor. So now we're on the even floors. We'll do a little bit of a single pull to show you that experience too. Like I said, if the big pulls are not your thing, don't worry. You don't have to do them, especially as melee. You are so strong on melee. So the single pull life is very viable, and you'll definitely see single pulls on the higher floors too. Like, that's gonna be a thing on the higher floors. Thanks, Ampler. Alright, so these enemies are not going to do, again, like I said, there's nothing here that's going to be overly surprising that you have to be like, oh my gosh, I gotta watch out for this one. Not really, not here. And we'll show you that, okay? So let's pull this one, the puck. We showed you last time how much damage the AoEs did over there. Now, we do have a steal on. And actually, just for the sake of it, I'm actually going to take the steal off, just so you can see the possible damage from the AoEs. Generally speaking, in PT, all of the AoEs, granted they do different things, they're all going to do roughly the same amount of damage. So you saw that was about 21,000 damage and parried. You're not going to die directly from a AoE, but of course if you get hit with a whole bunch of them, yeah, that could be a bit of a problem. Here's our little tech here that was showed earlier. If we open this chest with a casting, we can actually see if this possibly can be Mimic. We showcased the Mimic last time. Okay, so that time I did it. I did the cast and I did the check and we got a potion. So that chest opened, so that's why we were able to pick up the item. If that was a Mimic, then it would show up as an error message. So that's a little casting trick. And again, that's very samurai exclusive, at least for the melee, although Reaper can do it as well with Harpe. Alright, so we're going to continue here. Again, suggestion here is that you would like to get into the habit of checking all the rooms. Especially on these lower floors, I feel like it's definitely a good thing to develop. You know, it may feel like it may take a little extra time, etc. But hey, you want to stock in those power-ups. We're still looking for a Barkbalm, which we haven't even picked up yet, so that's one also good reason there. On the later floors, it'll get a little bit more complex about do I check all the rooms and everything. And certainly as the situation comes in, we'll definitely talk about it, but we'll talk about what's in front of us right now. Here, nice little demonstration here that we'll show, right? Here's a chest that I want to get to, but we got enemies over here. Enemies have different aggro types. The most predominant one that you're going to run into is a sight aggro. So that means anything in front of it, you'll aggro it. You also have what's called a sound aggro, and actually we're currently walking here. So how you would avoid a sight aggro is you just don't want to be in front of the conal. So if I step in front of this ignorance, it's going to aggro because it is sight, okay? So watch. Oh, that is our sight aggro. So in this case, if I want to go for this chest right over here, I just don't want to be in this front conal. Now, it isn't like a half room thing. It is like a front conal. Think like a typical conal attack that an enemy has. Just kind of have that visual in front of this. So here, you see the arrow that's pointing this way? I'm going to use my mouse here just for demonstration. It's almost like you can vision it, like one over here and like one over here. So if I come to this side, I'm not going to aggro this thing. And actually, I can probably... Oh, I was going to create like a little line there. But that's kind of how you get that kind of an understanding of that aggro range for sight. And it does have a range, like it's not going to see you infinitely, right? So in this case, that would see me if I go in that direction, so I'm going to walk behind it to avoid that aggro. This is definitely going to be useful on the higher floors, and certainly something we'll talk about more. But, you know, hey, we get to touch upon it right now. Now, sound aggro, if there's anything that is sound, basically they will aggro within a 360, but if you hold your toggle walk button, you can avoid that aggro because they can't hear you. They can't see you, but they can hear you, but now they can't hear you because you're walking. One very useful strategy, especially on those higher floors when you get up there. Alright, so we're going to the next one. Also nice to know, most enemies have a walk cycle of roughly 30 seconds, and PT actually is a little bit more on that. I would feel PT, it feels like they move a lot less than I'm usually used to. Whereas in the other deep dungeons, they move like maybe about 15 seconds, 20 seconds or so. Okay, so here we picked up a couple Pomanders here. We had the haste one, which kind of is self-explanatory, it gives you haste. But now we also picked up a Purification. Now, Purification within the community, a lot of people kind of shrug at this because it's kind of whatever. But this is decent because it does remove debuffs that you can get. Now, there's not many debuffs that you're going to pick up here in PT. But it could be useful in some extent for certain situations, and maybe we'll run into it, maybe we won't, but that is what that is for. I'll use one right now. So let's say we had a debuff on us. What it'll do is that it'll erase the debuff and give us a shield that will protect us against the next debuff. Think of it like the Bard Payon, which I believe it's Payon, that if you pop it on someone, it provides it as an Asuna, but also provides a shield to protect against the next debuff. And that's kind of basically what that is, except you get to use it for everyone. Here we're doing a big pull because we are on the even floor. Again, the odd floor. Again, this is purely demonstration purpose. It's not that every odd floor you should do a big pull. Every even floor you should... No, I'm just doing it just to showcase it to you guys. You can pull big every time if you want to. You can single pull every time that you want to. I just want to give you guys different looks on the different ways to kind of engage with the content. Okay. Sights, we're going to use that just because we got the extra. Now, a little interesting little tidbit here. In Deep Dungeon, you have a designated category that we call the story floors, and then we have the floor set 31 plus that are like the hard floors. Now, I mentioned in the 1 to 10 guide that the votives for 1 to 30 will always be positive, right? So that's just the thing, and then it swaps over to a little bit more positive negative in 31. But what's also very interesting is that in the story floors 1 to 3, so the first to the third floor, will never have a luring trap, which for score runners is kind of an important bit, but also just for the sake of extra knowledge for Deep Dungeon, you'll never see a floor trap 1 to 3 until you step into 31. Now this trap in particular, this is the transformation trap. On the floor guide 1 to 10, we stepped on this accidentally, and this transforms you into a fairy for 30 seconds. So I'll just step onto it just to showcase it to you guys. Again, this one is kind of brutal, especially more so for melee than kind of like, let's say, a tank or a healer per se. I mean, a healer could be in trouble too, because we can't do anything in this. And our HP is basically cut down. I think it's cut down in half. Let me see what our HP is when we pop out of here. So this can be deadly. This can actually cause you to just perish because you will take a lot of damage. So you want to be careful and hug those walls as best as you can. I'm going to wait for this to drop so I can get the votive, and then we're going to head out. Okay. Yeah, it's about half. My HP is about half there. So cut your HP by half, which is pretty rough. Gonna have to pull this one. This is Sight, and he's looking straight at me, so we're gonna have to fight this guy, because he's, looking menacingly at me right now. Is there a way to tell what kind of trap by looks? Yes, you can, Mr. Step. So here, they all have symbols. So the first one I stepped on, it's going to have kind of that fairy symbol. This one is I believe the good use for purification right now. This is the one that gives silence and pacification to anything in an AoE. So let me step on it. So as you can see, it does that. However, my purification blocked one of them. It blocked the pacification. So each one does have a symbol. We demonstrated the luring trap on the 1 to 10, and we also demonstrated the landmine on 1 to 10 and the Innovation. So each of them do have a symbol, and that's how you can tell which one is which. Okay, hitting that one, that's the witching. I actually forgot about the witching. I was supposed to use it, but we got the purification back, and off we go to the next floor. Thank you for asking the question. Alright, so the even floor, we're going with a smaller pull here. We'll go with a single pull to showcase that to you guys. And once again, the first floor, the fourth floor, the seventh floor, the enemies tend to shift a little bit depending on kind of, you know, sometimes you'll see carryovers, but typically when you enter the fourth and seventh floor, you're seeing like a kind of a new set of enemies that tend to show up. The votive earlier gave us Swift Passage, and Swift Passage, as you can see, gives us perma-sprint. Actually, this sprint in particular is the one that you find in PvP. So it's just perma, it's always there, and it's actually pretty useful. There's some very specific things we can use it for, but we'll kind of keep it within the realm of where we are, and it just allows us to kind of go a little faster. Nice little time-save tactic that can be utilized, which is really, really nice. So here we're going to delete this, and we're also going to get the votive that's over here and see what we get on the votive this time. Again, single pulling, just to showcase to you guys, it's perfectly okay to single pull. Whatever playstyle you're going for, you can go for it. Alright, taking the votive over here. Again, watch your HP. I want to always make sure that I am close to capped, and good habit for you, especially for a new gamer, make sure that you are capped HP, because if this explodes, that's bad. And we finally have our Barkbalm. Fantastic. So the Barkbalm is important, in my opinion, for progression, especially for the first-time runners. This thing will double your HP, give a big dot to the enemy, so it'll help you kill the enemy faster. Very good for progression, especially if you're getting hit with mechanics. And also will delete the bosses much, much faster. Maze Root can help you, but they don't have a dot. So it's gonna do some extra damage. It's almost like having like a buddy healer in your party. But having a Barkbalm is almost like having a melee in your party. That's kind of the difference there. So we check this one. And, okay, we got that one. Okay, going to check this chest. Going for the steel here because we picked one up. Alright, taking that mid-combat. And the exit is clearly on this other end because we kind of explored all the rooms already. Alright, so now we need to kill a couple more. We had mentioned how... Oh, and we got the Mimic. Okay, so here's a really good explanation, and I'm gonna have to take the Suffering here, because we mentioned this in chat in 1 to 10. So the Mimic, why they're very bad is because they have a move called Malice, which Malice gives you a really bad debuff, which is called Pox. Pox is a 9-minute debuff, and can only be taken out by one singular Pomander called a Purity, which I don't have right now. And what this buff does right here is that it eliminates my HP regen and reduces my damage dealt. So it can get very annoying. And I would say in PT, it's very annoying more than kind of like game-changing. So what's really nice about this and what's good about melee is the mimics that you see from 1 to 60 to 59. We are capable of stunning them. So the bronze mimics, so they're going to be bronze mimics from 1 to 30. They're going to be silver mimics from 31 to 60. Those mimics are all stunnable. However, once you step into 61 and you start seeing gold mimics, mimics that come from only gold chests, then that's where you cannot stun them anymore, and that's a little bit of a tricky thing that melee specifically have to deal with. It's not something that tanks have to deal with, it's not something that Fizz Range have to deal with, but we do have to deal with it with a melee. I'm gonna use an Affluence here to kind of help me out with palms a little bit. Now, one thing that is very worth noting, especially for the newer player, and very, very good info here, a Mimic can only be one kind of chest in their certain bracket. So, in this fort, from 1 to 30, it is always possible, not always, but possible from a bronze chest. It can never be a silver, it can never be a gold chest. And then in 31, it shifts into a silver chest. It could possibly come from a silver chest, but it will never be a gold, never be a bronze chest. And then once you get to 61, it is all gold chests, never be a bronze, never be a silver. So I remember back in the early days of Deep Dungeon, we had people being so scared about opening all chests because they felt like every single chest was going to be a Mimic. And it's like, no, only these type of chests do it. And that is a very much a Deep Dungeon standard. So bronze chests can give you Mimics, happens, but you know, it is what it is. So here we're on the odd floors, so I am going to be going with the bigger pull here. And the sprint is actually really nice too for making this happen. And I just did a safety, so I'm not really overly worried about possible shenanigans on traps. That's why I'm running through the middle of the room and everything. Bronze chests are giving me potions and giving me some Phoenix Downs. Phoenix Downs are not really useful on your solo attempt, but bronze chests are going to be way more useful later on. So definitely get into the habit of opening them. I mean, you know, if you don't want to deal with Mimic, it's fine, but you should have more than enough power to probably delete a Mimic, so... But I understand, if you don't want to deal with a Mimic, it's good. However, on the higher floors, you're gonna want to change from that mentality. You don't want to fear a Mimic. Okay, did our big pull here. Flights. Okay, we're overcapped in a couple things, but we haven't picked up some of the other stuff. Alright, the next floor has a buff called Mortification. Mortification is something that is really nice for DPS as well. And we'll showcase it to you on this front. I mean, that's fair with what Ross is saying. I mean, the Mimics are, like, not as treacherous as they are in the other Deep Dungeons. We actually got a Pilgrim Potion, by the way. Our Regen Potion. You do pick them up here in single pieces. So, but, you know, Pox is still an annoyance for melee. I get it. You're gonna be worried about it, so it's definitely worth pointing out at the very least. I won't argue that. Alright, so what Mortification does... We're gonna highlight over this so you can see what the buff does. It... actually, it doesn't really tell you much. Heat vulnerability to power and rejuvenation. So basically what this does... Actually, I think it does it here more on the bar here. Here we go. You take more damage, but you deal more damage, and you do like almost like a perma bloodbath. So every hit that you do, every single GCD, every single attack will actually bring back some HP here. So it's actually really nice. So it kind of is a little bit of a speed up, and also very good on melee because you will get quite a lot back. I would say melee probably gets some of the most benefit out of this out of this little buff here. So you're gonna see every hit we produce some healing here. Oh. Yeah, you know what's good for our purification is that we can use a purification to remove that the pacify and the silence trap. So heyo, very useful value for that purification. Okay, it is an even floor, so I'm going with the single pulls just for demonstration purposes. Echo drops can cure silence, that's right, but we actually don't have an item in the game that can cure pacification. So in this case, purification, the Pomander is capable of doing that. Echo drops do share a cooldown with your sustaining potions. That is completely correct. So if you are relying on your regen potions to heal you, well, you can't use that now for about a minute or so. They do share the cooldown. Kind of wish that that would change now, but you know, it is what it is. Okay, so we have kind of the perfect kind of that goat is having a problem. The perfect kind of setup with all three incenses here. So I'm gonna hold on to them until we get an extra. There certainly is the case to be a little aggressive to it, like I was mentioning, like Palms did too, right? I was mentioning that at the beginning of this guide. The incenses I'd like to hold on. I would say for progging, I kind of like the idea of chilling with it. Oh, we have a very unique situation here. This is the first case of a treasure room with a lot of spider people that are all stuck in the middle. That is interesting. So there is a lot to unfold here. Let me talk about this, right? Okay, so first and foremost, I am dying, so I need to actually Serenity because the bad part about Pox is that I cannot auto-heal and I am literally slowly dying. So, I'm going to take the Votive here. I'm going to pop the Strength here. The Serenity took out the items so I can heal myself, okay? We got Mortification coming in. Now, here's a couple things to unfold here, okay? Our first case of a treasure room. What is a treasure room? Why do we call it a treasure room? Well, a treasure room basically implies that there's a whole bunch of treasure here, and that there are usually four chests in the room, but there's a lot of enemies to compensate. It's almost like they shoved them all into one room. I remember the Japanese community calling it a monster house, because I think it's referring to like one of the mystery dungeon games that is available. So there's a couple ways that you call it. Now, what's the characteristics of it is that it is a lot of enemies, and in this case, this is a little bit of a deep dungeon meme. The treasure room on the exit. It is right on the exit, which is fantastic. Here's the exit. So the biggest problem here is that I kind of have to take care of these things, and they're in my way. I can kind of skim through them a little bit and everything. Now, a very kind of unique deep dungeon thing that I can talk about this, but we can only talk about it if we run into it. Notice the direction they are facing. They are all facing me. Very intimidating, very menacing. Sometimes what happens, and if you saw it as we loaded in, they were all kind of crunched in and they kind of like started all like spreading out a little bit. Sometimes this happens where like the bigger the HP box, they kind of get squished together. And what happens is they will all spawn initially in one direction. Normally, what will happen is they'll like move around. Because they, you know, if they had smaller hitboxes, they have a lot of space and they'll move around. See that Contempt over here on the right? He's moving because he's free. But because they're squished in, they are incapable of moving at the moment because they're all, like, just caught up with each other. And because they're all facing my direction, they actually will not move, period. Like, they're never gonna move. Which is unique. So, if this case, right, let's say they're facing to my left. If they're facing, like, over to this direction, I could just sneak into this exit and not worry about it. So sometimes you will see this phenomenon because of just the way it happens. Now, I'm going to show you another trick, a really cool one, right? I was mentioning about hitboxes and how because their hitboxes are so big, they are like stuck with each other, and I could stand here for 10 minutes, they're not going to move. A little trick that we did in the other deep dungeons is if you reduce their hitboxes, they will now start to move. How we do that is we could use a Witching Pomander. I don't suggest this here, like it's completely unnecessary, but just for the sake of demonstration, this is a little like extra strategy. I'm gonna Witching here, right? And watch them. Now, because they have some spacing to move, look, this one moved a little bit. Something I didn't actually get a lot of them, but yeah, see the couple of them are moving right now. So that's why, because their hitboxes are now smaller. So I have to clear up some of these things from the treasure room just to get out of this exit cleanly. Now, kind of on the lower floors, you know what's going to be a really good idea here is the massive big pull, which I actually might do here because we are on the odd floor here. So let me do a little fortune here. Do a little sight here. All right, and this is actually a smaller 3-room. So, we kind of gave you a nice demonstration. Now let's just kill everything, shall we? And this is also going to be kind of nice showcasing of the capabilities of what a samurai can do. And really, again, all melees can pull it off. We're on the odd floor, so I'll do a big pull for you guys. And here we have a very unique landmine, which I won't engage with just because we're going to have a lot of things here. So, let's get to business, shall we? So I can get my castle. Now, we had demonstrated that without a steal, I'm probably going to die in about 3 hits, which is not bad at all. So, you can be a little careless here. Don't be overly careless, though. And also notice that the AoEs are not overly crazy. I am also dancing around this landmine, so just kind of be careful if you're doing a pull like this as well. One is trying to get away from you. Here. Okay. No, not yet. Let me just get out of this AoE over here. And see, we definitely got them. We had a steal, we had a strength here, so it's pretty good. And that's how we do with the big pull. And look, we got one chest. Typical fortune. So that's perfectly fine. And again, someone was asking earlier about the visual on the trap. This one is a landmine. I'll step over it. So that is a landmine. Never will directly kill you. It still has the ability to possibly kill you with other reasons, but directly it won't kill you. It'll do your current HP here. You can also identify a treasure room far away with the patrol just staying in that room too. What Lexi said is very true. I think that contempt that was in that room that I pointed out was moving around, that was a patrol, and it was only stuck in the room, because patrols spawning within a treasure room do not move around. It's just a deep dungeon thing. That's just, you know, why? I don't know. It's just what it is. So that can definitely tell you that it is in fact a treasure room when you just see a patrol just kind of vibing in the room. I'm gonna check this last chest over here. I can hit the target. Oh, that's a strength. I'm gonna pick that up. So that is, I'm really glad that showed up, because I could do this entire run, and that won't happen. So at least you got a nice visual of something of that weird phenomenon. And bear in mind, there's a lot of things in, let's say, this deep dungeon that will occur that does carry over into the other deep dungeons. That phenomenon you'll see in other deep dungeons. So keep that in mind if you're thinking about possibly doing other deep dungeons after this one, that a lot of what you learn here will be useful in the other ones. So we have Mortification once again. So we had explained what that was before. That will give us a little bit, we'll take a little bit more damage, but we will also deal a little bit more damage and also heal back like a bloodbath situation. So this being an even floor, we're going to hop in and just do single pulls here just to kind of demonstrate that. And I am trying my best to kind of get to as many chests as possible. Just so we can keep our stock going, because the higher and higher you go, the more and more Pomanders you want to have. You definitely want to feel comfy in that. You don't want to feel like you're straining for Pomanders, because, hey man, maybe you don't get them back, you know? You gotta watch out for that. Barkbalm additional. Okay, so in this case, now we have a little bit of an interesting choice here. Now, we're gonna go with my strategy, the way I like to look for it. I'm kind of thinking the floor ahead. What's my next floor? We're going to 30. And I want to have a Barkbalm for each of those bosses. So for me, sitting at 2 is not a bad deal, because I have one for 20, and then I have one for 30. So now the question becomes, what am I using here? Well, here, it kind of doesn't matter what you use here. The Maze Root will help me reveal the floor. I've kind of already seen everything. Just for the sake of demonstration, we'll use the Poisonfruit, so we can show you guys what the Poisonfruit is for. A lot of times, I like to couple a Fortune with a Poisonfruit, because it's going to kill everything on the floor that's currently out and available and spawned. So not a terrible idea to couple it. Even though we don't have many enemies right now, it's just a good habit. Poisonfruit comes out. Notice my debuff bar when it shows my status bar. You get a special status here. You will be invuln right now, warded by the Pixie King and invulnerable to all damage. So it's specifically damage. If you had a Mimic on you like we had earlier and he was casting Pox, that Pox will still hit you, which is kind of interesting. But it does make you invuln to all damage. So if you have a whole bunch of enemies on you, it's kind of a little bit of a strategy to utilize to kind of get your way out of there. You know, hey, I'm taking a lot of damage. Boom, let's use the Poisonfruit just as a completely emergency situation, which is a valid strategy for sure. Let's go check in here. Something just respawned. That's why that's not dead. That's perfectly in mind. We're going to pick up the Barkbalm, and we're going to pick up this one. Oh, that's Purification. We can leave it in there. Oh, and also, we have now our first instance of an Alteration, which we picked up. What an Alteration does is that it takes the next room. I'll use it right now just to demonstrate it to you guys. It takes the next room and takes one of these rooms, right? So we have 3 rooms here, 2 of them had enemies. It'll take one of them and swap them into Korrigans or Mimics. And so it takes whatever they originally are and then puts it into that. Now in this deep dungeon, the Mimics are definitely not as threatening in terms of killing you. They're bad because of the Pox. The Pox is what's going to be annoying for melee. But they're not that threatening in terms of like having to kill them. And one could argue that even on the higher floors, it's not a bad thing to get them into Mimics as opposed to fighting something that may be a little bit scary on. But the Korrigans are fantastic because the Korrigans die in one shot. And when you're talking about a kill count, you need what did I say? 3 to about 6, about 7? 3 instant kills, boom, you might be out of the floor instantly. And that definitely scales up and up. Once you're on 91 plus, those Korrigans are still dying in one shot, and that can be a good time save. So the Alteration can be a nice little strategy to kind of help you out a little bit of time. And also, Korrigans, Mimics, they have a little bit of a higher chance of dropping a chest. So it could possibly be a situation to probably get a little bit more items if you're a little bit low as well. So there definitely is like a little bit of a strategic use for it. I would say its strategic use is probably not as high valued in PT as it is in some of the other deep dungeons. But with that being said, it can still be utilized in that fashion if needed. And more, that'll be something we talk about later as we need to do it. Here, I'm just using it just to show you guys so you know what it does. And when we explore the higher floors, you can kind of be like, okay, this kind of makes sense a little bit. Because I typically have a little bit more of a strategic method of how I personally want to utilize them. So, alright, so in this case, we did get Mimics here. Their aggro range is about the normal aggro range. Palace of the Dead, for example, has a massive aggro range with the Mimics, like totally abnormal. These guys are like normal. We'll like kind of walk around here and kind of show you how far we can get. So, yeah, about that. That's about what I would expect from like a normal kind of proximity aggro. And by the way, proximity. There are going to be some enemies in this game, in the dungeon, that are considered proximity aggro. And basically what that means is once you get close enough, you're aggroing, period. You can't walk to them, you can't avoid their side aggro, they're just going to aggro when you get close enough to you. So that's one thing to be worried about. So in that case, that Mimic where it was sitting, I could not get to this next room without having to aggro it because of that proximity. Whereas, like I demonstrated earlier, you have sight aggro where these guys, unless I'm in front of them, they're not going to aggro, so we can get right behind them, and that's no big deal. So you have those kind of variances of aggro. And it's definitely good to know, in case for the higher floors, what aggros what. But for these lower floors, since you're killing things so fast, it's okay. In my opinion, it's not that grand of an idea. You're gonna kill them in like less than 10 seconds anyway, or like with like some type of opening burst, so it's all good. We're just trying to get the exit out of here. And I might actually go for the Mimic that's in that room just to get it down. Because again, possible chest drop. Let me get rid of you. You're not quite dead yet. Alright. So we'll go eliminate the Mimics. I have a bit of a burst available for me over here. With especially my burst that's gone. And here's the chest shot from them. And we get another Barkbalm. So actually, I can utilize the Barkbalm now just to showcase to you guys what it does. So as I mentioned, it doubles your HP and also does a dot. We'll be using it on the boss coming up as well, but at least you get to see it here. So watch my HP. My HP is now double the amount. We get a specific buff, Midsummer Night's Balm. And we're going to pull one enemy. You're going to see the kind of damage it does. I'm just going to hit this and you'll see what kind of damage it does on its own. So it'll tag it once you do it. There's the dot. And the dot is going to do a decent amount of damage. So it's doing as much damage as I would be doing. So that's why this one is very, very good for bosses. Because especially, let's say you take a boss that you're kind of shaky on. You're like, oh man, I'm not sure about these mechanics. Well, you can get rid of the boss a little quicker so you don't have to keep taking bone stacks and everything. Alright, so we got the 20 boss here. Not as scary as the 10 boss. The mechanics are, I would say, equally as simple. There's not that many. You got about, let's see... 1, 2, about 4 or 5 mechanics. So here, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to engage with this fight, and we're just going to kind of just hit GCDs right now. And I'm going to try to show you the kind of the full rotation of this fight, get it to about 75%, and then toss up the Barkbalm so you guys can see what kind of damage it does with the Barkbalm, okay? So here we're going to go without the Barkbalm just so you can be able to see the mechanics. What's important here is that the moment we engage, it creates an outer ring. Now this outer ring is not death. This outer ring gives you a bleed, which you kind of don't want to have to deal with. It is a little bit of a hefty bleed, But you don't want... Okay, so now the first mechanic. You're going to watch its feet. It's going to hit over there on the top left, and then the top right, and then the top back. So I'm going to go to the fourth one. It's going to also do a knockback, so I'm going to get knocked back into the fourth one over here. Boom. You're going to see the first one come off, and I'm going to go to that first one. So the ones you want to pay attention to is number 1 and number 4. And that spot is just where it lands. That's where it's going to drop. Then the next mechanic here is going to be a targeted mechanic on me. If you had a party member in Match Party, you can see that it was on other people. He's going to drop an AoE down here. We're planting it because this is going to be branching out. And you're going to see like kind of the position of where it's going. While this is branching out, we want to be dodging AoEs here. This branch out, by the way, it hurts. It's going to hurt actually even more than the actually outer position here that we stepped on to showcase to you the bleed. I would say more times than not, I'm not gonna get kind of Venn diagrammed here, so you're gonna be okay with that in terms of running around. So now here, I'm tracking number 1, and I'm tracking number 4. So that's 2. That's 3, so the fourth one's gonna be over here. I'm gonna get pushed back into it. We can arm's length it, which I will do on the next rotation. Here we're gonna go into 1, into 2, into 3, and it's relatively fast too, so that's why you want to kind of watch out for it. If you do get hit with it, you're getting a bone stack. You can definitely survive one, no big deal. You just don't want to get hit with multiple of them. We're going to plant the root over here at the edge here. Perfect. Now we're going to watch for where that the branching out is going to happen while also dodging the circle AoEs. If you need to, you can always do your potions. You can always do bloodbath to kind of watch your HP here. You're gonna definitely need some type of healing kind of to go a little consistent here. Now the mechanic repeats once more. So here we will toss the Barkbalm now to kind of show you how the damage is with what I would typically recommend for you guys to have when you do this. We're gonna arm strength here. So you're gonna see us. We're gonna not get knocked back with this one. No big deal. We're gonna go into 1, we're standing on the fourth one. You do just have enough time, so you definitely want to be on 4 and then go to 1. Because otherwise you would get clipped even if you're standing on 3, potentially, so... Planting out this mechanic, just doing it on a repeat here. Okay, watching our feet, watching the AoEs coming out. Ooh, that's actually a little tight spot I gave myself, but no big deal. Not too big of a mechanic. Alright, and you can see the boss is definitely dropping a lot faster. And this is the rotation, so this is what you got. Just gotta repeat the mechanics. This boss is not too bad. I mean, just without the ads makes it, I think, a lot more manageable for sure, because you can just run your normal rotation. Okay, number 4 is gonna be over here. I'm gonna get knocked into 4 and then walk into 1 once I drop. Waiting for 1 to go off here. Boom. And we go into 1. Again, you have some leeway. You can get hit with a couple mechanics. If you don't want to get hit with a whole bunch of mechanics all at the same time, then... Or back to back to back, you take those bone stacks. Plant that one over here. Okay, watching our feet here. Get a little spicy. It's like a little spicy, but there's still, you'll find a space. Especially when you go into like the wider triangle angle, you will find a space to go and to move. Just kind of really have to watch your feet and you don't accidentally step into the branching. We're at 1% here. And the boss is dropped. That is 20 for you. So again, a lot more strategy here. We're actually still not quite full with our Pomanders. We haven't picked up a couple other ones that we're hoping to look for, so we haven't really been able to demonstrate it. But there you go. Just like 1 to 10, kind of the mixture of doing big pulls into single pulls, whichever your play style is, go for it. We still had 23 minutes left, not a big deal. And a lot of this explanation also takes more time to do it, so keep that in mind as well. Got our first use of the Barkbalm here to showcase to you why it's a really good Pomander to have. Incense to have, especially for boss progging. Definitely helps you kind of reduce the mistakes, especially if you're getting hit with mistakes. So that is 11 to 10. So I hope that's a good one, guys. So there you go. In the books, 11 to 10. Oh, let's say 11 to 10. Why did I say 11 to 10? 11 to 20. I know my count. I know my numbers. 11 to 20.